We're waiting on Tracy, but said she would be here, so. Mm-hmm.
She'll just have to catch up. Go ahead and call the meeting to order. Do the Pledge of Allegiance. Do you want to do it?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please do a roll call, clerk.
District 1, Tracy Langley. District 2, Donna Hill.
Present.
District 3, Jean Hepler.
Present.
District 4, Billy Tedesco.
Present.
District 5, Sam Scamardo.
Present.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you.
There she is.
Oh. And I'll hold for a second. Madam Clerk, would you redo the roll call, please?
District 1, Tracy Langley.
Present.
District 2, Donna Hill.
Present.
District 3, Jean Hepler.
Here.
District 4, Billy Tedesco.
Present.
District 5, Sam Scamardo.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. And seeing no public attendance, I'll go ahead and move into our approval of the January 19th, 2017 minutes, and if call for any changes or corrections.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to accept the minutes of January 19th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Regular agenda, item 1, discussion on need for animal shelter services in Fort Mojave, Mojave Valley. Is John got to be?
He was going to be here, yes.
Okay.
He sent his information
Yeah.
to include.
You want to skip over it and come back?
Well, we can actually talk about the services and stuff, and hopefully when we get to item 2, which actually gets into the Vanderslice, we'll do that. In your package that you have, there was included a spreadsheet. Where is it? I had it. That it's a single page. It says Mojave County Animal Shelter MCSO incidents and the Western Arizona Humane Society animal. And that has, overall numbers for Kingman. But when we look at I guess we have to go back to the sheriff's numbers for calls and location. Sorry about that. But basically, when we talked in our last minutes, we had roughly around 1,000 calls down in that area when you could put the Mojave Valley, the south and north, and Fort Mojave and stuff together. So it goes back to that again of having possibly 2 shelters, or the need to, and talking, but the sheriff, I think we can kind of look at it and open up the discussion, but it's ultimately the sheriff that says with his staffing and stuff if they want to do it. So open the floor for discussion on that.
I think the numbers obviously, justify having a facility in that area.
Okay.
Yeah, because for the people in Fort Mojave and Mojave Valley that drive here, you're looking in excess of an hour each direction.
Okay, I have something to add on that, though. I've talked to a few people, and we'd have to make absolutely sure with animal control. From what I understand, if an animal gets taken to WAS from Fort Mojave or Mojave Valley, animal control is more than willing to carry that animal back to those people. They can call and pay their fee over the phone. There's an officer that comes from this area every day and goes out there. So if the sole reason is for pickup of animals that have been taken, there is another solution for that besides having a facility. Now, adoptions are another issue, which I'm sure a lot of people are going to Bullhead Shelter, which, that's good. That's good for them, especially. A lot of people aren't going to drive to Kingman. PetSmart adoption weekends happen all the time, too, which Saint. So I guess what is the sole purpose would be my question to justify opening another facility down there.
Well, I think that you'd have to look at the fact of if they're providing that service to take an animal back down there for a person that had one that got picked up, that kind of, if they can do that on a fairly regular basis. But I think what impacts it is where the decision is, where the shelter's got to be up here. If they leave the shelter where it's at and came in and fix it up, or if they move it to an option where you put it over at the Neil Butler Park, then you're putting several more miles of traffic to get to that area. But at the other impact of opening a second shelter is almost doubling the cost of having to maintain, even though, if we look at, if the board decides to build a little bit bigger facility, it adds staffing, and then if you add another facility, who's going to man it as a contractor? And you're looking at going from, I think it's like $500,000 of operating cost.
For our contract?
The contract.
It's $260.
I don't know.
WAS
What?
contract is $260.
Yeah, what's the WAS contract right now?
It's $260,000.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Billy, is that right?
I'm not sure.
Pretty sure it's $260 is what they're getting paid.
I thought it was a little higher, but I think, well, there's some other, the contract, you have to look at total reimbursement because it includes licensing and stuff, fees from licensing and stuff like that, so.
Yeah.
But anyway, you're looking at probably, like the needs study said, around $700,000 to $800,000. So the county's facing that right now with the jail right now, paying off the jail. They're going to have to take all that cost of maintenance and stuff back into their budget. So anything you do, you have to look at that cost of maintaining those facilities. So That's one of the impacts.
I mean, I like the idea, but the feasibility of it is poor. Like the money, of course, has come up a lot in this whole thing. The money to run it, you'd have to go out for another contract. And the money you would take away from here for those however many animals would not equal up to the money it would take to run that facility. And the facility isn't, and then of course, on top of that, the amount of work the facility would need to be a running facility with an office and kennels and everything to be working.
Don?
It's feasible, but I want to see something in writing from WAS that they would commit to 2 or 3 days a week going down to that area to be able to pick up or transport and bring people back their animals.
Well, but that's the the sheriff's enforcement officers,
Yeah, I'm talking about animal control.
animal enforcement officers.
It's the first I'm hearing of it, I would like to see something in writing.
Okay.
I guess I just wanted to clarify, as I understand it, I think Mojave County is one of the is it the fifth largest county in the country? So just looking at it, just the sheer number of miles covered, and my understanding is that the county shelter that's located on Buchanan takes in all of the animals except for Lake Havasu within city limits, which was Havasu takes in. Bullhead City has a contract, I believe, with their shelter to take in the ones within the city. Every other animal from Meadview, and looking at this incident report, all of these animals go into the Kingman shelter. And I think that in an ideal world, it would be great for each city to have their own shelter, and possibly even the county could contract with each of those city shelters and divide funds up to help cover that area, but that hasn't taken place. And I personally feel that we do need a larger, nicer county shelter, and that's why this committee was formed, I think, to look at that. And it would be fantastic to have 2 separate ones, but I just think financially, if we're able to build one nice, newer one, larger one that's able to take the numbers for the whole county, that would be excellent. A holding facility as a possibility. Like the city, I believe, of Kingman holds their animals a day or 2, the neighborhood services, to try and find the owners to get them back home before they're put into the WAS system. I mean, those things, I think, would have to be looked at by the county, the Board of Supervisors, to decide what type of contract that they would do. But I think from our standpoint, deciding that we need one nice, newer, bigger facility and making recommendations if that's the case kind of is our concentration, I guess.
Okay. Sam?
Mr. Chairman, excuse the frog in my throat. One little point of correction there. Billy, I appreciate what you had to say, but actually WAS in Lake Havasu takes animals from Kingman and Mojave Valley and Bullhead City and Parker as our capacity allows. So we take, our goal is to make it live. We've actually got Kingman up to almost 90% live release now. But as far as that going, I agree with Billy on the fact that I think one larger centralized facility would be much more economical, staff-wise, construction-wise, land acquisition-wise.
Yeah, and it's interesting to look at numbers and stuff like you do and focus on it, and I think it's a good discussion by both board members. Yes.
I agree. I think it would be, economically, it would be very tough on us to try to run. And then the other thing is, if we can justify having one out there, which we can in a way because we semi have a building, but then what about the residents in Chloride and Dolan Springs? There's a lot of calls from out there also, and I know a lot of animals come in from there. So, okay, well now we've got one down here. Well, Dolan and Chloride are almost just as far, so now we need one out there. And it just kind of starts and then Truxton and, everybody else. So the other thing that I don't like is we can't even really, with the information that we've got, incidences is one thing, but like you guys talked about in the last meeting, actual animal numbers are a completely different thing. We don't really have access to the actual.
The one spreadsheet that I have kind of, when we look at it,
Okay.
we'll look at that. I think it helps us kind of look at that a little bit. The only way you can kind of change that is to start defining what the sheriff collects on data collection. So,
Well, and then you would have to have owner surrender numbers, too.
yes, yes, yes. And Western Arizona does some of that on their report, so, but the sheriff doesn't. It's just an incident.
Yeah, just for the record, I wanted to say I'm totally in agreement with getting one facility that can handle the county, but I want, in saying that, I want to see something that stipulated how we're going to service the outlying areas. We don't have a secondary or third location.
Well, and that's one of the things that the board later down the road can look at, because, you know, I don't know where the new sheriff is right now, but I know that they've been pushing for some new substations, and there's been some discussion about locating a substation off of 95 and 40, and when they do, moving the Mojave Valley and the Havasu into that one building. And I agree with all board members, is it's the economic of returns sometimes is to focus in one, but then at the same time try to do the service. You know, the cities, each one of the cities, Havasu, Bullhead, and Kingman, you know, have their own enforcement inside their city limits. But you know, the problem we have is the Beaver Dam Littlefield Strip area, which we deal a lot with. The Mesquite actually takes their animal. They take care of our animals usually and hold them for us, and we pay them. So.
And that's kind of, that would be kind of an agreement too, but that's kind of besides, out of our scope in a way, and that is nice. Like if there was a substation down there, maybe they hold them for a day, 2 days, 3 days, just like Mesquite does, which is a really nice agreement because it's so far. They only go up there, what is it, once a week now?
Yes. I mean, the only other thing we could possibly look at that we can recommend in our report is that the Board of Supervisors and staff look at, like in Bullhead, doing some kind of agreement temporarily where it sounds like Bullhead has their animal shelter up and running, and maybe they house some of the animals that are know that the owner can pick up or something like that. Go ahead, Donna.
Also note that Bullhead City is now taking in Clark County animals. They're coming in from the Laughlin area. They have a contract with them as well right now.
Okay. So,
That facility is really small though, really, really small.
yeah.
I think they've got, does anybody know how many runs they've got? I think it's like 15, no, it's like 20 maybe.
It's not very big.
And their live release rate is far lower than
Well, and they wouldn't,
ours.
we tried to get the numbers, Donna and I both, and they wouldn't share their census numbers at all.
Oh, really? You have to go down there. I've been down there and I walked in and I said, I need your live release rate. And
The manager was not there and they would not release them.
I think I did speak to, isn't it Aaron? I'm not sure. I did speak, but that's been like 6 or 7 months ago.
Okay. Well, anyway, I think what will come to a point, hearing the discussion, and I think item 2, when we get into that, will kind of give us an eye-opener of how much it's going to cost to spend down there to fix it. But at this time, what I hear the consensus from the board members is focus on one right now, but at the same time, put a little note that you do have an issue with population and numbers that would verify the fact of later on looking at if they do make a new substation, that would be looked at least to be able to hold, like Kingman Police Department is, if they kind of figure that the owner's dogs that loose, they're going to hold them at an area temporarily.
Yes.
And the animal enforcement people are their citizen people would ever take care of them. So is that a general consensus?
Yes.
Yes.
Pretty much.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a problem, it needs a solution, but not something we can address right now, basically.
Okay, okay. We'll leave that item like that, as that we're going to focus on the one, okay? I'll open the floor for item 2, discussion on Mojave County Sheriff's Office kennel on Vanderslice Road in Mojave Valley, looking at the updates on septic disposal issue at facilities. And thank you, John. I'll give the floor to you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, committee members, staff. At your request, I put together a quick and relatively rough estimate for accomplishing some improvements as to in compliance with the guidelines that we've talked about in previous meetings. Bottom line is the number I came up with is just a little south of $275,000. That's going to roughly buy you about 2,100 square feet. There will be some facility that will not be able to be constructed because of landlocked issues down there. The facility, as you recall, is right next to a old wastewater disposal site. That site was prepared for the absorption of wastewater and evaporation of wastewater. It's not structurally suited to build on, and in order to make that happen, there's a lot of excavation work and a lot of material needs to be brought in, so I thought it was economically not feasible to expand beyond those boundaries. I have delineated the major cost components of the expansion efforts there on your sheet. I didn't include a lot of detail. I'm not sure exactly how much detail you were expecting. I didn't have a whole lot of time to get too much further than this, so what I've got here is what I've got, and I'd be willing to answer any questions that you all might have. However, I would be remiss in one thing is describing to you an approach that Mojave County Facilities uses in evaluating and maintaining its properties. Being an engineer, I don't pass up a chance to try to use my computer as much as possible. And in doing so, we have used what the property management industry calls a facilities condition index. And what that is a mathematical model of the cost of repairing the facility in its current condition and looking out some period of time, typically 5 years, divided by the cost to replace the asset, land and building. It's used in a lot of the real estate investment trust companies that you've heard, we see about. We use it here as Mojave County to try to decide whether we want to repair or replace the facility. And this facility is coming close to the number in which we would like to try to look at replacing rather than reinvesting funds in it, because we have to balance a number of cost implications. We can run a lot of older facilities, but the cost per square foot is driven up by doing that. Older facilities cost more to run because of the age of the equipment, the increased maintenance, et cetera, et cetera. It's pretty intuitive. But this facility is in that category. It does have a few things going for it, however. It is largely made of concrete block, which doesn't really wear that much. You have to paint it, but that's a minor cost to improve it. The roof is relatively new. It's only about 8 years old, so it has about another 20 years life left in it. But the inside of the facility, if you've been in there, is very tired, and it needs a lot of rehab work. In addition, a lot of the linear footages and space requirements that are outlined in the adopted architectural rules, if you will, that we've talked about in past aren't in place and will need to be added. I've proposed to add those facilities as you move out to the front of the building. In other words, push the front out towards the existing sheriff station's jail area in order to accommodate that square footage, and that's where that 2,100 feet comes from. So I open that up for questions.
No questions at this time. I've been to that facility on a couple of occasions and pretty familiar with the site and the building and everything. It's going to be more of, like we said, discussion down the road and what the new sheriff decides what he's going to do with his substation, whether he utilizes that existing facility or builds a new one. So I don't think right now we're going to just take this off the table if the committees.
Any other discussions from members?
Other than, just a statement that I agree with your, or come close to agreeing with your position that it is just about at the tipping point where it's going to cost as much to fix as it is to replace, and with the replacement, you get that extra buffer of a few more years before we have to start fixing it up again. So.
And thank you, John, for putting that together for us.
Yeah. And, I think that the point is having that, we can, note in our report that we looked at it, and that down the road, if they want, if the citizens come in and raise, heck or with them, thank you for the word, they at least have it in their back pocket to know that that's what it would take, and and look at it, and I appreciate it. And then I think you also handed us the septic tank thing that they're actually not a septic, it's actually run into this tribe's sewer system, right? That's how they corrected it?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to say almost 10 years ago now. I don't recall exactly how many years ago, but the facility was still in use as an animal shelter. In addition, the sheriff's department was using the jail side of the sheriff's office down at the substation as a jail. The primary problem came from inmates would, because of the staffing and the issues down there, inmates would put a lot of solids down the waste lines in the jail portion. And the place was pretty much handled by a septic tank. The sheriff's office was handled by a septic tank. And the solids, the clothing and the hard items would cause havoc in that system. In addition, the transpo evaporation field for the animal shelter was not handling the hair and the solids waste that was being driven from that place. So at that time, the county decided to remove all of the septic tanks from that particular location, including the roads yard, et cetera, and drive all of those into the tribal utilities sewer down there. The drawing that you have in front of you is the engineering that was done to facilitate those improvements, and that system has been running down there for almost a decade. So there's the plumbing infrastructure there to handle an animal shelter type of operation. There is a solids interceptor in that system that gets all the big stuff out that can be pumped out at will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it wasn't quite 10 years, but because I came on board and it was happening when I was there. So,
Yeah.
But I appreciate the effort to let us know that is a critical item if they decide to put a shelter in that area. So that part of it's taken care of.
Another option, it would be nice if, this might be far-fetched, but if a 501 wanted to run a rescue, maybe it was leased by somebody like Saint or somebody like that.
I was thinking the exact same thing. Yeah.
And say we make the county makes an agreement with them, hey, can you hold our strays for a day or two? And then, there's some revenue where it would cost very little for that section instead of having to do the whole building. So, there's options. It would be nice if somebody maybe expressed interest that was a 501 down there, because it's a nice, I hate to have it just sitting there, but.
I agree. I was thinking of mutt matchers with the long-term city. Yeah, exactly. And they would be responsible for upkeep and whatever. And it's just sad that it's there with all the need for animal rescue and animal sheltering, that it's sitting there and not being used when it is functioning at least, or, well, sort of functioning.
And I can speak toward volunteers. We get a lot of calls on the Saint line weekly about people wanting to donate and help, thinking that we do have a facility. So that's definitely could be on the table.
We'll tell Saint. And I just wanted to add one other thing for the record. I had looked back into the needs assessment that was done by the county back in '07 that they had done, and it pretty much said at that time that the remote site in Mojave Valley provides only 10% of the county animal control services at that time, as they saw. But it also said the same thing about that the facility wasn't adequate, and that the upkeep and the maintenance and the wasn't worth it. And that's, I think, might be when they closed it down, after that assessment was
It
done.
sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes. Didn't have the staffing to keep it open. So, but thank you for calling our attention to that. So at this time, John, thank you for both your reports, and I appreciate it. And so at this time, it kind of goes along. Now we have a number of roughly how much it would cost. We know that the sewer system can handle it if it needs to. So is there any other input from?
No.
Okay. Item 3 is discussion on possible rental purchase of the Rising Star Kennel located in Bullhead City. Originally, one of the board members and brought this to our attention when we first started meeting. I didn't get a chance to go see it, and I've been busy with a lot of search and rescue stuff. So, but I think a couple of the members have gone down and looked at it, or have been down there.
Yeah, I've seen it. I think that's a bargain, as far as I'm concerned.
It's what?
It's a bargain for what they're asking for it.
Okay,
And it doesn't need an awful lot of work. Minimal work.
minimal
To
work.
bring it into our requirements and our, the guidelines that we're establishing.
Discussion from other board members?
Does it say how many kennels it has right now?
I mean, if you were considering the 2-facility option, I think that would be excellent. Have that one, and it could take from over there, but then, and then do one over, in the Kingman area more for the rest of the county. I think it'd be awesome if we could do 2 facilities, and this, if it is a good, how many animals does it hold? It is 71 kennels, there it is. No, that's awesome.
Yeah, the only drawback I saw was, as you said, it's kind of not centrally located. It's in Bullhead City, and if that would, I don't know if that would fit the demographic or the area requirements for Kingman and Meadview and Wickiup and further east in the county.
I mean, the only thing I see is it's close to down in the Bullhead and Fort Mojave area. I mean, you can get to it through the parkway, right?
Yes.
And the airport right there. So at least it'd be better than driving all the way up here. But that's an option that we can look at, and I particularly want to, one of the board members from District 2 was very interested in us at least looking at this, and if anybody has a problem with it, we can put it as one of our options that they could look at, the board can look at, but not a main one. I think what our focus is doing one, and this is just an option that they can look at if they want to.
Well, yeah, because Bullhead has their own coverage for animal control. So, I mean, that's like putting the courthouse in Seligman, kind of. Like, essentially.
Yes, yes. Any other discussion on that item?
No.
Okay, item 4, review of quarterly animal intake statistics. So there's my spreadsheet. So I provided a spreadsheet to you that has the incidents. What we talked about in our last meeting is putting a quarterly number together. So I took the numbers of incidents and then put it in, so a total of 4,649. And then what I looked at is the Western Arizona Humane Society's numbers for Kingman, and this is where their Mojave County's animals received. So in Western Arizona, they have, in their stats, they set a number up that says Mojave County animals received. So that's what that number is. Although on the December's numbers across there, I kind of averaged them out because I didn't have a full report. I must have mislaid it or whatever, and we can update it with the numbers that we need. But then the other line is the Mojave County impounds. And we probably need to define what they mean by impounds. My thought was the impounds. Is it, and you brought up, Billy, the fact of this might include the number of days.
Well, that's what I'm not sure. If you look at we did get the Mojave County numbers from Mike Hendrick's office. So, I mean, if we're looking at strictly census numbers, that's animals brought in, but then the impound, I believe, includes number of days that they're held, and then for charging purposes through the county, I think those numbers has to do with billing. That's a whole separate report. But you mentioned the WAS numbers. I mean, we do have quarterly numbers that are the actual animals brought into the county, because they put that on their website. So we have those numbers, if you're looking at strictly census numbers.
So 3979.
That was quarters 1 through 4, and then the last 2 quarters were 1,068 and 984. It averages about 380 animals a month, so about 3,800 a year, just as an average.
Well-
And that's coming into the county shelter, according to the WAS figures,
Okay,
not
well-
including the WAS Lake Havasu or Bullhead City numbers.
Well, the number's not too far off then.
No.
What number
No,
I
I
have.
think they're real close.
I mean, there's
Yeah, I think they're real close.
4,098 or 4,100, so I mean, it's
Right.
real close
Sure.
in the numbers.
Yeah.
So I think the numbers is the impounds, not the days.
Okay.
So, but anyway, that kind of gives us an idea, it supports, and again, it's nice to have the incident numbers, but that doesn't equate to how many animals they impound. But again, having the Western Arizona numbers of what they received, what was impounded, gives us a number to work with when we look at the number of kennels and stuff, that we can kind of figure out a daily and monthly or quarterly numbers. So that kind of backs up what we need.
Okay.
If any questions on these numbers, or?
Mr. Chairman, the figure was given 380 per month for 3,800 a year. It's actually 4,560 a year if you project it over 12 months.
Maybe it was
So it's real
something
close to the figures right there we got in there, yeah.
Yeah, and we
So
can,
just a,
we can clean it up a little bit as we go through, but I just giving us,
Oh, we
it's
know.
just giving us some numbers to work from rather than just being out there blind,
Right.
and trying to pull some stuff together. But, you know, the committee asked, I guess I volunteered to put they asked for the quarterly, and I tried to put it together for you. So, but anyway, that gives us, and what was your number, Sam, 4, 5 something?
4,560.
4560. Okay. Okay.
Was that I'm sorry, was that 6 quarters or just 2? What was that number?
Well, you said 30.
Well, that was for 6 quarters. 4 quarters were 3979.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
then that's my mistake.
Oh, yeah, and then, I'm sorry, then the first 2 quarters, because it isn't on it's a fiscal year versus January to December. So, yeah, it was 3979, or according to the WAS website, was what the year was, quarters
Yeah,
1
so
through 4.
it's
These are
roughly
just the-
around
the
4,000.
most
Okay,
recent. Yeah,
gotcha.
these are just the most recent ones.
Yeah, it's
Gotcha.
roughly around 4, you're averaging 1,000 a quarter.
Pretty much,
Yeah.
yeah, pretty
Yeah,
much.
pretty much.
1,000
Yeah.
a quarter.
So, okay. Any other discussion on this? So we have the sheriff's report and did that, and item B was the Bullhead City.
We were
Not able to get
obtain.
those.
Okay.
And they don't actually go into the county facility either, so it was just a
Well, it's just nice to know.
additional information.
Yeah.
Jean, thank you for putting that together.
Oh, no problem. Item C was the Western Arizona Census Report, so this
I think we
spreadsheet,
covered.
we covered that, got some numbers on that, so we're looking at roughly, 4,000 plus
Per year.
on that, right? Okay, so item 4, unless there's any further discussion on item 4, we'll go to item 5. review of the Neil Butler Park Animal Shelter proposal and funding update from Harold and the park superintendent. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Chair Hepler, committee members, Hal Barton, Mojave County Parks. At the last meeting, we presented an option to the committee to locate an animal shelter at one of our community parks up in Neil Butler. It happened so that afternoon, we were engaged with a meeting with some grant folks with another one of our facilities, so we decided to talk to them and take them to Neil Butler Park and talk about the options of grant availabilities and monies to put the animal shelter at Neil Butler Park. And the meeting that we did meet with, we met with Jeff Hayes, who is the Community Programs Director, and Lisa Curtis, the Community Programs Specialist. After a tour of Neil Butler Park, they were very open and ready to work with us as early as even July this year. Now, let me go over some of the availabilities and what we're looking at here. Is they have two options. Is you have grant monies available. That's just monies that you're going to get for the facility. And the monies that they do talk about are not enough money to build it, but they're in the $50,000 range. The other area that they do option is they do have 30, 40-year loans at 3% interest, of which that they go and loan the monies to the agency, to the nonprofit organization to build the whole facility. And the applicant then again would need to work with the USDA with regards to the requirements to receive the funding, and this is federal funding. And the eligible expenses that could be earmarked for the loan includes design, development, infrastructure, site improvement, building construction, site improvements, lighting, fencing, and it's pretty much would be the whole kit on that aspect. When we talked to them, we were looking at, well, what have they done in past for other animal shelters across the country? And apparently they gave us two examples of a humane society in Lackawanna County. It was a $3 million loan, 3.5% interest. And here again, the shelter had outgrown its existing size, and they did a 5,000 square foot expansion. Improvements included, state-of-the-art HVAC, secure law enforcement drop-off, cat-dog isolation, and pretty much the gamut that you would ask for in the shelter. They funded another one in Oakland, Maryland, $1.68 million at 3.5% interest. And then they included a $45,000 grant with that. And that was for a 12,000 square foot new facility. And that was also to include shelter, grooming, and a clinic on county leased land. And here again, the improvements were the state of the art and the latest and greatest to what the current code requirements would be. The USDA is just one of options that we would look at and that we could provide for it. We also have other available grant monies out there that I'll ask my parks planner, Jeremy Palmer, to go over with you. And then I'm going to throw out a couple other ideas for the committee. So I'll turn it over to Jeremy.
Harold, before you step aside, I wanted to make sure. You said the loans were for how long?
30 to 40 years.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman, committee members, thank you. So I looked at some of the private sector grants from corporations and other nonprofits. You probably are aware of some of these. There's the Albert Schweitzer Animal Welfare Fund, which is funded twice a year for shelters. And given any of these private funds, they have stipulations based on their mission. So if they provide the funding, it's to support their mission. I could not get an established maximum on this one. There's the American Humane Society, which offers seed money for shelter improvements up to $4,000. Maddie's Fund, designed to help build and sustain no-kill shelters for dogs and cats, up to $5,000. PetSmart Charities, they look to build capacity for animals. So the shelter would fall in line. This would assist with construction and rebuilding or remodeling. And that's, could not get a maximum number on that. Petco offers up to $100,000 for life-saving facilities. And then there's the Kenneth Scott Charitable Trust, which offers up to $50,000 for new facilities. And with that, I'll give it back to Hal. Thank you for your time.
What I'd like to throw out to the committee for the ultimate recommendation to the board is that Mojave County Parks is really striving to improve New Butler area, the New Butler Park. And if this is a committee recommendation on the board, we'll throw this one carrot for you, is that we will do the grant writing for you. And with that, I'll open up for questions.
Members?
Can the grant money go to the county, or does it have to go to a nonprofit on most of those?
It would go to a nonprofit.
So what you would be saying, that we would have to set up a nonprofit to...
If we're going to go the approach with the grant monies under that category, yes, for the nonprofit.
But from what I know, you can't do that. Grants have to be, like a nonprofit has to be around for X amount of years. Like usually it's 5 for most grants, isn't it?
No, not usually.
Sorry. Committee member Langley, this, it kind of varies based on the programs. Some of the private loan or grants don't stipulate exactly, but I've seen a lot of them around 3 years.
Well, but what I hear is saying is, because we have discussed earlier the one statute that says you can set up to receive donations for construction and capital improvements. So it would be like forming a Friends of the County nonprofit. I mean, because right now I'm in a situation with the search and rescue. We set up 501(c)(3)s in our volunteer group. Sheriff doesn't give us any money. It's all donation. And we provide all the other services for the sheriff. So that's the situation we would be looking at here, probably, my understanding. We don't have our lawyer with us, is that the county would, some group be Friends of the Animal Shelter for Mojave County, and then help us move forward and,
Which would also allow for community donations. Donations directly from the community, just like the splash pad, because then
Yeah.
it would be tax deductible.
But it would give them that opportunity to open the door for a lot of stuff to come in. So.
But the period of time for the 501 being open would eliminate us from some of the grants, because a lot of them don't. I've looked at do not allow new 501s.
I know, but I think have some agencies within the county that are already helping animals that we could possibly look at.
And that was the other option that I was, we have 2 animal-related 501s, big ones that I know of off the top of my head that have been around at least a little while.
And probably...
More,
Yeah.
yes.
But that's something that the board, we'd have to look at it saying, it's kind of an option. The county can go and go fund it and find the funds, or the other option is to partner with either IB, what's the big one? Mutt Matchers, what's the big ones?
For the Love of Paws,
Have a
Halt,
pause and whatever.
WAS, Humane Society of Mojave County. I mean, we've got quite a few,
Yeah, Westerners.
but we'd need the lawyer probably for that part
Yes,
to make
yes.
sure that that's, because my only problem with that, because that came up when you were discussing finance when I wasn't here last week. If it's done through, okay, so this is going to be a SAM probably thing. So Lake Havasu owns the building and they get the contract for Lake Havasu. Is that correct?
Havasu doesn't own the building, we own the building, WAS owns the building.
Yeah, WAS owns the building. So how willing is a 501 going to be to take in the money and give up the building? I guess would be my thing. Would they be willing to give up the building? And if they're not willing to give up the building, if it's a contract issue, like whether it's whoever, if the 501 we use is the one that has the contract, is that almost conflict of interest? Because if you no longer give that group the contract, you no longer have a building. So then you're going to have to go with that group for the contract.
You lost me on that one. You have to clarify where you're coming from.
So if, say WAS specifically, because they have the contract now, so they take in this grant money, it goes through WAS
To build the building.
to build the building. If Western Arizona Humane keeps the building, if the city decides that their standard of care, or they don't want to go with them anymore, well, now the county no longer has a building, so it kind of puts them in a bind where they have to go with that group, or they're really in trouble. So that's logistically, that's kind of weird for me, but you have dealt with that, how,
Well, our buildings were purchased with private funds. Everything we purchased, and the new building will be purchased with private funds, actually financed largely by the sale of the old facilities one at a
Okay.
time as we go along, plus other donated lands up here in Kingman and in Mojave Valley. And we've got a lot of crummy land all over the county here that has very little worth, but we have some really nice commercial lots in a couple places, which with the apparent boom in the market, I think we can pretty much liquidate. As far as WAS being the entity that handled the grant, I can assure you, speaking for most of the board, unofficially speaking for most of the board, we don't want another building. So I think if the lawyers could figure out a way that we could act as the conduit to get the grant money to build a new building, I could assure you that I don't think WAS wants to own another building.
okay.
So we have
That
our
would be
own-
my problem, but the thing I like about
Oh,
using
yeah,
WAS
and again, that's something
specifically,
the board's gonna have to decide too.
the time in business
Mm-hmm.
that particular entity has been a 501 makes it highly eligible for a lot
Oh,
of
yeah.
grants.
I mean, I can't see any reason why anybody in our board or our structure, our corporate structure would object in the least bit to acting as a conduit to handle the grant.
That would definitely be a detail-oriented
Because
thing.
we definitely don't want buildings in three different, we've got a contract here, plus our main focus is Lake Havasu City, but as I say, we take the overflow from Parker, and we take the overflow from here, and we take the overflow from, believe it or not, Flagstaff. So we take the overflow from a lot of other shelters, and we do it happily and gladly to do so. You know, our focal point is live release and all the animals.
Because if this ended up being a thing, it sounds like it could potentially be grant money, but it could potentially be private money mixed together, which would be ideal.
Well, I think on a go-forward basis, it's probably going to be put on the agenda for next month, so we can do some research, the legalities, what the county has and what we can do.
You'd have to run it by the board and the county attorney, I think.
Yeah.
Would be the one to figure out if that's legal to do so, because boy, it's over my head. I couldn't tell you one way or another if it's legal.
But knowing, experience with dealing with the board and the board members is, they usually like to own their buildings, and, unless they're gonna do design build and then, lease it back or whatever. But I think, Tim, you had some inputs?
I think, thank you, Chairman. Basically, I think the process would be, as has been suggested, to get with legal counsel on it, but I don't see a problem in at the start, if an agreement's put together, that this is the intent of the agreement, this WAS or whoever it is would be the vehicle in order to raise funds and accept the grant. And then at the end, that would then be dedicated over to the county or something like that. So yeah, it'd be something we'd put through legal, but I think as long as that agreement's in place at the start,
You
I
could
don't see a
pre-state that in
problem.
the contract anyway, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great idea, and it's very nice of you to offer to go after the grants. That's a big
Fantastic,
step in the
yeah.
process.
Go ahead.
I'm a big fan of grants.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Well, but what's interesting, talking about grants and stuff, and again, I just got finished talking to one of the lieutenants in the sheriff's office that was moved, and his whole sole purpose is to go get grants for the sheriff's office. And then he got told that oh, you have to be careful how much you get because the county has a cap on how much money they can have. And yes, yes. So they actually last year almost met their cap on, because the county can only spend so much money. So if I go and get money in a grant and it comes under and it washes through the county, it's their cap, right? Judy, you're shaking your head. Am I right? Go ahead.
Yes, that's true. We had to put in $500,000 guesstimate as to how many grants the county would receive, because if you receive more than your cap, you can't accept it.
But this wouldn't count against that because it would be like a.
If it comes through the county.
But the
if
grant
it-
would be to Western Arizona Humane Society, and then they would be,
We would probably need to
Gifting.
consult with legal. to
Yeah.
Make sure, because if it comes through Mojave County, you will have a, we'll
Are the
have a cap.
caps decided like annually when the budgets are cut?
Yep.
So in a
Yep.
case like this, we would just have to do an adjustment to the suggested cap if we're doing a big project.
Yeah, and I've been telling departments, if you're anticipating getting grants, you need to anticipate the total amount that you're going to get so that we know to put it in the budget, because if not, we won't be able to accept it.
But there is a way around that, I think, if it has to do with capital and borrowing and loaning, you know, you push it out over a period of years, right? If I remember right.
It's loan versus cap, or loan
Well,
versus.
it's capital improvement, but you can move money in on the, if you pull grants in and donations in, if it has to do with capital, there's a shell game.
Gotcha.
So you have to be real careful. And Harold, yes.
Chair Hepler, members of the committee, if I may add, Mojave County Parks is an enterprise fund, and we do not receive general monies from the county, so we're a little bit different than that.
If
So
we go through the parks, yeah.
If you were to go,
Yeah.
team
But-
up with Mojave County Parks.
Ms. Toledo?
It's still all under a general fund. It doesn't matter if it's parks or not. We all have to, it's all rolled into one total. So we have to anticipate for the entire county, whether it's general fund or special district funds.
Well, and I had a question too. So the 30 to 40-year loan at 3%, which sounds like a wonderful opportunity, would that also have to be the loan, would it be to the county or would it be to the nonprofit that was associated?
It could be either.
Okay.
Chairman Hepler, if I may, just to hopefully shed a little light on the caps for the grants and all of that type of things. If we get to that point where we're looking at, okay, this year we want to raise funds and accept this grant and you know, accept donations from the county, we can be, and Judy, please correct me if I'm speaking out of turn here, but we can be somewhat optimistic in budgeting for that. And basically the idea is in creating that budget, we say, hey, we'd love to get, you know, say whatever it is, $5 million for this. And then in that same budget, we put in there that we're going to spend $5 million. Well, as things go, if we only get $2 million in grant funds, we're only going to spend $2 million on that project. But basically where we're going is we want to make sure it sounds like we're capped, but it's basically in planning, we just want to make sure that we plan for the optimal amount that we think that we could get. That way, if we receive more than that, we're not pushing that cap. But that cap we set each year with the budget season, so.
so it's not a limited amount.
Exactly.
You make the limit of the
Exactly.
amount. Okay, that
Well,
works.
well, there's twofold in that because the actual state sets a cap for the counties and how much they can spend. And there's a number, and the finance director just came in. Because I know, working as the OMB director, there was a cap that each one of the counties have and how much they can take in and how much they can spend. But there's different pots that they put it in. So there is a cap that the counties have. Yeah. And then I know that the county, the finance and the staff, they have gone to a zero-based budgeting, so they kind of put their cap on what money they have coming in and how much money they have to spend, so they have a cap there, but. We're talking about finances and grants, and the Park Service has offered the gentleman to be able to help us go write grants up, and there was looked into the fact that there's one outfit that'll loan you up to $3 million for 30 to 40 years for a 3% interest or 1.6, and then grant money too and stuff like that. So but looking at a nonprofit, granting that money to a nonprofit, and then we were looking at possibly some options that are out there. But what I brought up the fact is, after talking to one of the lieutenants over in the sheriff's office today, because I know he got directed to write grants, that there's a cap on how much grant money can come in, or a cap that the county had for spending. Did that impact last year or close to?
So the state law, well, I guess I better push that on. Can you hear that?
This is a
Can you hear me
finance
okay?
director.
Okay. The state budget law is that whatever you've adopted for your tentative budget, you can't exceed that amount, is basically what it states. And therefore, the public has an opportunity to come in and see what you're planning to spend, and that you don't play games later and raise it when everybody leaves. So that's the purpose of that. A couple of years ago, there was no cushion in case we did receive a grant that was in excess, or an unplanned grant or an unknown grant. Then we had to reduce everything else in order to accept the grant. So we've adjusted for that, and we did include funding. It's just an appropriation that was adopted so that if we do receive grants, then we have the ability to spend them during the year that you receive them.
Okay, so like, if we put a report in and say there's a possibility of going after, $2 million in grant, so when this report comes into you in the budget process, you could probably, if the board decides, hey, we're going to try to go do something, then put a $2 million cushion in your budget proposal to try to go do that.
If that happened during budget deliberation, we would increase it before we got to the tentative budget and actually state what the purpose is. And then, if not, if it's just really pending and there's no decisions or no direction, this year we included like an appropriation of $5 million because there was just nothing before. So, and it's certainly possible that we could have multiple, particularly in public safety, they get a lot of them, where they can total several $1 million. So we had a cap of $5 million. I would think that would still be plenty, but if this could be $2 or $3 million, maybe we need to raise that.
And when did you say you do that?
We do our budget deliberations in May, June. So I guess our final date for this year would be July. I think adoption July 18th for the tentative.
And that's why initially when we had started our meetings, I'm looking at trying to put something together and have a report back to the board so that they can go into their budget process rather than dilly-dally around. And excuse me for using some, but I guess in today's environment I can use that terminology. At least somebody wasn't involved in. But anyway, I think that gives us better understanding then. So,
Yeah.
Sam.
Well, my past experience, which I have to admit is probably 15 years in the past with grants, was when you talk to the grant administrator, they will pretty much tell you, yeah, you're probably going to get it, and yeah, it's going to be this kind of an amount. So we could work toward that kind of a goal. Now, grants may have very well changed since I was on city council, but that was pretty much the criteria then, is you pretty much had a 99% idea how much you were going to get, and if you were or weren't going to get it.
Chairman Hepler?
Yes.
If I may, Coral, just a follow-up question. Are there any state restrictions outside of the budget process that would restrict the amount of grants that we could receive? Does a state
Yes.
say, okay,
The expenditure limitation, but we are millions of dollars below that.
okay.
That we're not
So
restricted.
basically, really, our only restriction here is during the budget season, we want to make sure that we allow for any possible grants that they could get through this deal. And that's something we do internally, just as long as we get it approved in our upcoming budget.
Correct. So you have to appropriate for it, and then you can only spend it if you receive it. So sometimes it's difficult for the, private business versus the government of why would you inflate? You're just inflating your budget. Well, we're not inflating the money, so, if you do not receive it, you wouldn't be able to spend it, but we have to be able to capture the what-ifs.
Thank you.
There could be other restrictions. We have several audit findings, and some of those are federal grant related with the way that we were had structured. For example, our vehicle replacement fund has to transition to a vehicle use fund and some things like that. So ultimately, if we fail as a county to modify some of our procedures overall to address those findings, then we could lose grant funding.
Thank you.
That's the downside of that.
But I think that, what we're looking at, it kind of opens up, and thank you for clarifying that. And so if we're going to go after something in a combination of grant and donations, and a lot of your granting agencies like to see matching funds where friends of the animals or whatever come up with the shelter or something, come up with funds and try to match them, and the county come up with a little bit. That's what they like to see. Your likelihood of getting a grant is a lot stronger if you have a combination. Although it sounds like the couple grants you were looking at is they were willing to fund straight out at a 3%. And
The loan you're talking about?
yeah,
not
the
grant?
loan, or loans.
Grant.
Yeah, loans and also some grant money too combined with them. So there's a combination that are out there. What you're, we could go after some loans, but then also it looks like there's, $50,000 to $100,000 or something like that in grants that you go after. So
Way
Yes.
more than that. Like he said, a lot of those there's no,
Yeah,
you
well,
couldn't
there's
find
no-
in
no
Pet Smart
limit on
charities.
some of them.
Yeah,
that
I mean, there
is being-
could be
Yeah,
a lot.
yes.
Chairman Epler. In addition, for donations, we are required to record those, so we do budget if we anticipate receiving donations. So, from the business perspective, you're expected to do that, in the United States so that you can pay tax on that for governments, to disclose how we're receiving and paying for things that are donated
Yeah,
to us.
yes, definitely.
So if it was all taken in through a 501, like WAS or whoever, if it was all taken in and then they oversaw the building of the building, and then the building was then donated to the county, how does that apply?
That's where legal gets involved.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we would have to get a legal opinion, but because of the procurement law. Boy, you guys are really wading into this. So that's a little bit more complicated, but we would definitely, it would have to be approved so that it's some sort of an agreement that meets the minimum threshold of,
Well, yeah, because if we went into this venture, it could go different ways. It could be that the building is finished and then it gets donated. It could be that the money for the building gets donated. I mean, there's several,
yeah.
we could go with whatever is best.
We would definitely have to prove that we're not
Doing anything shady.
having another agency take on the responsibility to avoid complying with the procurement law.
Yeah. Yeah, and that procurement laws get into, they're a book this high or whatever, and so you have to be real careful with that. You muddy the water. The cleaner you can put it, the better. I mean, there's some options there that we have to look at. So, and I really appreciate, any other questions with the Howard and Larry? Anything
Not a
else?
question, but I personally have to say I really love this idea because I know that area very well and I deal with a lot of homeless animals in that area. And I just think it's great that the county, the parks want to develop it. And so I just thank you for looking into all that.
And I'll speak up from being on the other side of the mountain. I went out there and looked at the facility last month. I think it's a fantastic idea.
And
Sam?
The only thing it doesn't really
Certainly a
fit,
good location, that's for sure.
the only thing it doesn't really fit that we've put on our criteria from the animal assessment would be the accessible to major highway. And a little, and then like we discussed, a little further
Not
from
that far.
Mojave Valley and all that
Right.
stuff. From the current shelter, it's about 7 miles? What do you
I'd
think?
say about that.
But it's not, that's not a vast difference.
No. And I'm gonna take a little liberty. I'm gonna probably get my hand slapped a little bit, but if legal's not here, so. What I'd like to do while we're right here on this item is, and thank you very much.
Chair Epler, thank you very much, committee members, and Mojave County Parks, we're here to help however we can.
Yeah.
We really just want to see improvements up there. Thank you.
And I think, thank you, and our economic development guys, did he? Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. But what I'm going to kind of take a little liberty on this and kind of spread this item 5 a little. You know, we've had presented to us, and we've discussed this, are kind of our options. And, you know, when I look at it, as we had the warehouse area, we've had the Golden Valley BLM land, and we had the Mojave Valley, and we had the Kingman shelter. And looking at this, how do people feel of option 1? What do you think is option 1?
The other two we looked at was the property out by the prison.
Mm-hmm.
And there was some discussion about the lake property. Out of everything we've discussed and seen, I'll speak for myself, I love the idea of Neil Butler Park, even before they ever presented what they did last month. I went out there and thought, if it's fine with the neighborhood and we can do it, I think it's a phenomenal idea.
Do we have one other item? I see we have a hand, well, owner, Mojave County, mailbox, this, oh, that's another parcel. I don't want to muddy the water with that. But I kind of hear us talking that Neil Butler be our option 1.
I agree.
Consensus on
Agree
that?
that it's an option, yeah?
Okay, so I'll take a consensus on that everybody agrees on that? Okay. And then what would be our option 2? We have either the warehouse and the Kingman, well,
Over here, you're talking about?
yeah, in this area. We have the warehouse or the Kingman shelter itself, or the Golden Valley or Mojave Valley, so.
Well, I personally feel like the new build on the warehouse property next door would be ideal. It's centrally located, it's right by the highway, it's visible. It would be a brand-new build. You could build facility however you like. Yeah, I personally feel that would be the second choice.
Okay, is anybody, Donna?
From a supervisor point, would they be looking at a secondary option being improving and getting the land next to the existing shelter and expanding that way? I'm looking from a supervisor
Well,
and a fiscal. If we can get the funding, I don't think.
well, I guess my opinion is that if we can go from our ideal, what would be best for the animals and overall, and a new build, in my opinion, is the best. I'm just thinking, in order, if this is going in order of, you know, what's absolutely ideal down to Band-Aids and fixing up and, you know, expanding, I personally feel that the current shelter would be the last option. That's my opinion.
I'd like to say the third option.
I don't know how many options were coming up.
Yeah,
Well,
whatever.
I think we try to look at 3,
Okay,
and then have, that in a reserve that and let them know that we looked at the Mojave Valley and we looked at the Golden Valley, just to satisfy them as looking at it. But if you come up with 4 or 5 options, I'd rather try to
a little
limit,
overwhelming.
down to 3 and just say, yeah, we've looked at this and looked at these properties, and we can include as a backup type, here's our 3 options, but we did look at the Golden Valley, the Mojave Valley shelter itself, and we also looked at this piece of lease property. That way, those are 3 things that we looked at and we note in our report. So,
Okay.
I also like the option, though, of over by the library, where they're thinking about putting the park, but I mean, that's a huge expanse of space, 2 or 3 acres off of
well,
the
then
park.
what you're suggesting is
They're going to
that,
build a lake there.
yeah, well,
But-
but there's still property.
There may never be a lake there. There's a huge issue with water.
Yeah.
And it's 25 acres. What was it? 24, 25 acres. We didn't really go into heavy discussion on if they would be willing to give up 2 or 3 of that. There's an L, there's a shape on the side that's, I would imagine they would square it off anyway and not use the L by the library, like where it's kind of funny. And that's probably the amount of acreage that the shelter would be looking at needing. So, I mean, that's kind of an option that I would like to look into more before because it's centrally located. It's right there by the freeway. I do like that property. I understand that they are looking at that property as being very high resale value if they don't put a lake in. I do understand that, but
Here's what we can do to solve, I think, our issue. On our option 2, we could suggest that they build on a new
New
facility
facility.
on county land, and the options could be this or that.
Correct.
How's that?
That works.
That's a great idea.
Option 2, and either the warehouse back here or the library, lake area. How's that? So
That would be
our option 2
expensive.
would say, build a new building.
here's 2 options of where.
Where? They could, and the architect would do that. So, comfortable with that? Okay. And then option 3 would be the fix up and get land and fix
Refurbishment of the current
the
shelter.
current shelter.
What was option 3, Gene? I didn't hear you.
To the Kingman shelter itself,
Oh, okay.
there's some land that they
Right.
were looking at, and then.
And refurbish.
And then refurbish and moving the admin building and we're putting, but we put some
And move it with
criteria.
a bulldozer.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much, but acquiring the land or some city land and stuff,
Right.
but
It
building.
could be done there, yeah.
And, I mean, they just had the roof cave in a little bit on part of it where the laundry or cats were or something, so I know that they were doing, but it does definitely, we do have some numbers that would take to fix it, and John was good enough to provide us with some numbers to
Right.
fix, so.
Yeah, that would be like option 12 for me. but,
Yeah,
you know,
well,
I agree.
yeah, I
Very,
agree.
very, very last, because that place is a knocker downer is what it is for all intents and purposes.
Which for us would be option 3, if we're only going to do 3.
But
So.
actually, yeah, it does need a lot.
But
of
I'm
work.
sure they'll want to see that option. They'll want to see it.
I would say a new build on that facility,
Well,
a phased new build, phased new
phase it in,
build,
put a kennel in and that can take care, and then fix totally,
and have a ritual burning downing of the old place, huh?
yeah.
But then even with that option, if you're going to start building new, that's not the property
Well,
to
there's
do
a nice
it on.
piece of land right there next to it.
But it doesn't meet like a lot of the criteria.
But-
It's
but
in a
John-
neighborhood and
John
it's.
did a very good job of presenting how he would approach it and step it out in order to do that.
Sure.
And
It
I
is
think his
true.
engineering stuff would do, but I think that if you go back to, what the board asked us to do, is to look at the needs assessment, and we've agreed that what they're recommending is we're adopting those standards and also the the guidelines for standards of care in animal shelters, as we've agreed to. And we've come up with numbers of roughly how many kennels we need. And so, what we have here is, I think, some very good options, some funding options too, because the other options, 2 and 3, would, again, require them to either look at, some grants or whatever, but there's a sweetheart deal with the parks.
Absolutely.
And, so, and then what I'm moving towards is starting to draft, if the board agrees, the committee agrees, is to start to draft a report to meet and have, to try to come to the next meeting with a draft report that we could get ready to present to the board. And I don't know if there's uncomfortable with that, but I think
No,
we,
I don't know.
I don't like to, because I like to be able to give something to the board to
Sure.
start moving and, I'm going to use that word
I concur,
dilly-dally
yeah.
around. So, any problems with it? No. And I know this is kind of broad in this item, although we should have a separate one. I'll take my hit. But I think that's where we need to kind of to move towards. Everybody in agreement? I'm going to ask.
Can we do that now, or do we need to put that on the agenda for?
I don't see any reason why we. Is that a motion? Yeah, I'm going to kind of make a motion that we move forward, and I want to get everybody's agreement to that. So, yeah, start drafting a report.
I agree.
So I'm going to put a motion under this and ask for a first agreement and a first and a second, and then get everybody. So I need somebody to,
Make the motion?
yeah.
I want to make a motion for our next meeting that we'll discuss and start formulating the plan to present to the supervisors,
Well, we're going to be coming to the next meeting.
coming to the next meeting, and we're putting
draft.
together the draft for the plan that will be the proposal going to the supervisors.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That passed. So, basically understand, we're going to start drafting something to
Yes.
come together at the next meeting.
Yep.
So we already set an agenda item for next meeting is, the setting the agenda is to be able to start reviewing the draft,
Okay.
okay? And so that's set. What other items do we need to set for agenda for the next meeting? Do you think of anything?
I've got two.
Okay.
I think we should put something and talk to our legal department with regards to loans and being able to take grants. We already think we've got the budget
yeah.
information that we need to know by May or June of this year when they go to set the budgets, but check the legalities as far as where we can put these monies and the financial. And then if we could, through the Park and Rec Division, if you could give us a handout or some information on the different plans that are available for financing,
Oh, wait.
as well as the grants that are available and how much is available for each one, and if there's any time limitations on any of them.
Yeah, kind of lay out, you kind of throw them out there at us, but just kind of give us something that we can put in our report.
If you would, that would be great. That's it for me.
I have two things, exactly pretty much what she said, but yeah, legal, to see grants through the 501, more specifics about that whole thing that we need legal for, definitely, because that's a great idea. Do we need any more information on the area by the library? Because we kind of got varied information when we discussed that. Do we need to put that on the agenda that they say for sure, yes or no, we can try to use a part of that so we know if we want to put it in our report or not? Because we never got a
Yes or no?
we never got a definite answer.
Excuse me.
We're talking to somebody. Do we need to put that on the agenda that they give us an answer? Can we use a section of that? We kind of got a,
Is it an option?
Yeah.
Oh, the library?
The area by the library, by the park, is it an option? So I'd like to put it on there to see if they can tell us for sure if a 2 or 3 acre section of that is even an option, so we know if we need to put that in our report or if it's an absolute no-go.
Okay, so that's asking staff to look at the library land, the Kingman Library land, and see if there's a possibility.
Slash Lakeland, yeah. My only other thing would be, maybe I missed it, we don't have and maybe that's not something that we would do necessarily, but for our third option, I guess we would need a finalized refurbish estimate and what would be in that in detail. Do we have that?
we
I'm-
have-
John gave us last time.
Yeah, he gave us,
Okay,
yeah.
gotcha. I must have missed that one on there.
We do,
So that would be our third that we would be submitting, that would be the 100% the deal.
yeah, and then we have, at least John has provided us for the Mojave Valley, if,
Right.
questions come up, and then we did look, so we actually have 3 options with the 3 items that we looked at, as far as, the lease piece of, or the buying the one piece of property at the airport in Bullhead. So we have, and then the Golden Valley BLM land. And it just answers, because I want to make sure, seeing that the board, different board members have come to us and says, oh, here's this and here's this, that we did look at it, and we need to note that we looked at it. And then if their architect and whoever in the board wants to, well, I don't like it, I don't want to go this way, then that's their battle, not ours.
We looked at the big picture.
Yeah, so,
One footnote, I don't know necessarily that it's an agenda item, but I've been looking into different shelter facilities down in the Phoenix area, and one thing that's pretty common is to have a nice benefactor that donates a big chunk, and they put their name on the building. Just something to put in the back of everyone's mind, if anyone would know of anyone. The one I was looking at actually in Scottsdale that just was refurbished, it was in memory of their daughter, who was an animal activist that had died, and the family donated I think a couple million, but just an idea, so if anybody happens to know anybody that has,
Lead in Las Vegas is the same way.
Same way,
Lead shelter.
same way. And, we have a lot of ranchers and a lot of, big, longtime family people, and I believe this is one of the big families, is the Neal family, that was their land that they donated to the parks. So anyway, just something to think about. It'd be kind of a nice idea.
Mr. Chairman, could we put on the agenda with possible discussion about moving these meetings to the morning?
well, we had
Or is
talked,
that an issue?
I think it's, we ran into an issue with
Oh, yeah.
being here,
Oh, okay, that works.
yeah. And I'm hoping, huh?
As long as it's the same day, this entire day is available to us.
Is it-
Ah, okay.
But that's only if the planning and zoning commission doesn't need it.
Yeah, that's where we run into planning and
Okay.
zoning.
Which is not, that's not something we anticipate in the very near future.
Now, Mr. Chairman, the Planning and Zoning Commission is not seeing the size of agendas that would warrant a second meeting at this time.
Okay.
So the same date, the third Wednesday of the month, is available to us in the morning.
Okay. Does other member, well, let's hold yours for a second to wrap up what we're doing.
Oh, okay, I thought you'd wrapped it up.
No, I didn't. So what I hear us doing in agenda items is the draft of the report, asking legal to look at the loans and 501(c)(3)s and building issues, right? And then and the Park and Rec grants, a report, the breakdown, and then the Kingman Library land options, right? And did we have another? Did I miss? Okay. And so that's that. Now, meeting times.
I'm flexible.
You're flexible.
What time in the morning?
Just in the morning. I mean, just, it kind of blows the middle out of a whole day.
You You're saying like 9 o'clock?
Yeah, 9 o'clock's fine. I'm not,
9 o'clock's doable. I know they go to lunch at.
Mhm.
What time do you staff take lunch? Okay. Okay. Do you have,
Actually, I think that would be fine, probably better, I think.
because what I'm driving towards is, we're going to probably have 1 or 2 more meetings and,
Getting it final.
yes,
Right.
finalized, so. And our next, hopefully, the second meeting after this is one where we can meet, then we don't even have to wait until the end of the next, or middle of next month.
yeah, this board has a limited lifetime anyway, so.
Well, that's what
Yeah.
Yeah, the only bad thing in the afternoon is like at 9, they usually go 11 or 12, you know.
Sure.
It depends on how long
Well-
we'd have to keep it to 2 hours, maybe 3 at the most. If we go any more, everybody's gonna be starving.
We'll be fine.
You'll be
Chairman,
fine, okay.
Well, we'd
Staff-
like to be able to get them to cater lunch for us once, they bought, they bought the planning and zoning,
Staff is willing to meet with you whenever is suitable for the board or the committee.
So do I hear a motion to change the time of the meeting? 9?
I guess he wants to make the motion.
Yeah.
I make a motion that the board changes its meeting times to 9 AM on the same dates that we've set.
Okay.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Now, before we wrap up and call it, I don't know if we want to go off record and discuss this staffing issue that I have a concern with, that you didn't know. Do we want? Go off record?
Mr. Walsh and I meet with you separate.
Okay,
Make a motion to adjourn?
yes.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Good meeting.
Good meeting. Thanks, everyone.